All right. Yesterday, I know it's an entire 24-hour period has passed. This is old news, but you know what? I gotta cover it. I need to cover it anyway. Should have done it yesterday, but anyway, what I'm trying to get at. Yesterday was Comey Day. Hashtag Comey Day. Where, of course, former director of the FBI testified before Congress over the now infamous Comey memos, so on and so forth. I'm sure you have the gist. And I was going to go over some of the observations that I made from this just in general. This is going to be probably fairly short, because this is just in general. I will break it down a little in subsequent videos, go into a little more detail about what exactly happened and some little things that I noticed. First off, don't get too excited, there really weren't any major revelations. There were some confirmations more than anything else. Basically him, Comey sort of reaffirming or kind of confirming for everyone the content of the memos and what was going on in the situation and all that around his firing and meetings with Trump and so on and so forth. Now, and of course, it went the same way you would expect in this current climate. It went about as you would expect in the way things are politically right now, in that the everyone on the left was all Russia, 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 Russia. How does Russia play into this kind of thing? Which, see, that's the thing with legal cases. And I don't know, maybe because I've had the misfortune of serving jury duty, but I've kind of or working in the legal system for a couple years. But to me, the way they ask the questions, the way they phrase things, and the way they conduct stuff like that, questioning like that, is totally off. Because they're always like, oh, well, how does this connect? How does that connect? That's not the point. Here's the thing. Here's the big revelation, big thing, my little aha kind of thing with Trump, Russia, Comey, this little love triangle that's going on here. Whether or not Trump actually has any direct connections to Russia, which, let's be honest, he probably does, I feel, probably, in my opinion. So, he's got various business dealings, you've got various stories or some circumstantial evidence of business ties or money being held by Russian banks, where, things that could end up being a gotcha for him, as far as influence over him. But that is not the question, though. That needs to be asked right now. The question that needs to be asked is, did Donald Trump try to commit sort of an obstruction of justice by trying to, as the memo, Comey's memo says, by encouraging him to sort of leave it alone, the whole Flynn thing, or drop the whole Flynn thing, or letting it go. Because whether or not, see, in a situation, this is what I mean by the kind of peculiarities of when you're dealing with something in a legal matter, is that at that point, the initial legal matter, in this case, the investigation into Michael Flynn's ties with Russia, is wholly inconsequential. It does not matter if he comes up smelling like roses and is proved never to have had any dealings whatsoever with the Russian government. The fact is that during the investigation, the president tried to at least encourage the director of the FBI, who was director of the agency conducting the investigation, to let him go. That could definitely be construed as obstruction of justice. And whether or not there was any, in the end, turns out to be any connections between the Trump campaign or the Russian government or Michael Flynn and the Russian government or whatever, that no longer matters. All that matters is that in this particular case, he could have potentially committed obstruction of justice by encouraging the investigation go away. And so, but yeah, that's what they end up always want to ask is like, oh, well, what does it say about the investigation? Like, it's an ongoing investigation, and that's not what we're here about. We're here about whether or not obstruction of justice took place. Stay on topic. I know, coming from me, that's rich, but anyway. And of course, on the right was kind of, on the GOP, the Republican side, they were kind of all over the place, especially John McCain. We'll get to that in a little bit. But, and then on the GOP side, they're trying to just sort of explain it away and say, like, oh, did he specifically say to drop it? Did he tell you to drop it or I'm going to fire you? Did he order you to drop it? Like, see, and this is that kind of Washington thing, way of phrasing things that I think pisses off a lot of people. It's like with campaign contributions and all this stuff. It's like no, it's not a bribe. It's a contribution. It's like they just gave me millions of dollars or gave my campaign millions of dollars because they believe in my message. It has, of course, it has absolutely no strings attached. Promise. And it's kind of like that. It's like, okay, this is a bribe, but it's not a bribe because you don't call it a bribe. It's like, I mean, does that work anywhere else other than DC? Could I maybe like walk down the street smoking a joint, and then when the cop pulls me over and says, "What are you doing with that?" Like, what are you doing with that marijuana cigarette? Like, what, this? This is a banana. I don't care what you call it. I call it a banana. There's nothing illegal about walking down the street carrying a banana. Oh, yes, sir. Have a nice day. Yeah, I don't think that would go over too well. And see, it's the same thing here. It's like, okay, well, basically, what the GOP is trying to say, back on topic here, was trying to say, like, oh, no, he didn't really obstruct you because he didn't specifically say to stop the investigation. He didn't say stop the investigation or I'm going to fire you. So obviously he wasn't, he felt that you should clear him. Like, okay. Well, now, here's the thing with that argument. The argument is that it's like, oh, well, he didn't specifically outright order you to do it, so obviously it's not obstruction of justice because he wasn't trying to interfere with the investigation. Okay, well, let me put it this way. Let's get a little scenario here, okay? So, here's sort of what happened in that meeting, that infamous meeting where he said, hopefully you can let this go. Trump, Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, and Kushner and Comey were all evidently participating in a meeting in the Oval Office. Now, at the end of the meeting, Comey, Trump told the Attorney General and Kushner, and everyone else in the room to leave, with the exception of James Comey. And once they were alone, I had this old conversation with him, and which, by the way, too, in this situation, the FBI director, was alone with the president. It's not supposed to. You're not supposed to do that. So now they're alone. President and Comey are by themselves in the office, and Trump asked him, like, "Oh, could you let Flynn go? I mean, he's a good guy. I'd really appreciate it if this is a witch hunt. He's a good guy. He didn't do anything wrong. Can you maybe see through to letting him go? Let him get clear of this?" So, what that is like, you say, okay, well, he did not expressly command him to stop the investigation. But see, here's the thing, though. In this situation, remember, he is as hard as it is and as distasteful as it is to admit, he is the President of the United States. He's the Commander-in-Chief. So, let me put it to you this way. Say you're at work, and, forget your boss. Not even the boss. The CEO of the company. Say you work at General Motors or something. And the friggin' CEO of the company calls you into their office. Tells everyone else to leave. Okay, go to lunch. Get me a salad. Hey, close that door behind you. And you're sitting by yourself, like alone with your boss's boss. And he comes over and, maybe like that fatherly kind of thing, puts his arm around your shoulder or something. It's like, it'd be really great if you could do something for me. Yeah, if you could maybe do this thing, maybe change this account or move this money from here over to there, or do something with these quarterly reports. I'd really appreciate that. Now, is that just a friendly request coming from Lord Almighty, owner of the company or CEO of the company himself, that he is absolutely not going to mind if you don't follow? Or is he fucking telling you to do something? Maybe you don't have a job on Monday if you don't do it. Maybe, you get blackballed when you try going to blacklisted. When you try to go find another job. So, that's my opinion of it. It's like, okay, yeah, he didn't expressly command him to drop the investigation, but my God, he was hinting at it. And when you are, the director of the FBI and the Commander-in-Chief of the United States is hinting at something, it's influential. So, there's that. Now, and of course, in addition to it, we kind of, bring up things like other issues were brought up. Again, I will get into that in other videos. Also, too, Tim Pool also did a video, I will link to in the description below, awesome video about sort of like the coverage of this situation, like what's going on in general with this, and how kind of overhyped it's getting. And it's one of those things too, like I understand, because it's to a certain extent, one, they're not going to tell us the good shit. All right, the really good juicy stuff, that's most likely still classified, if any of it exists. So that more likely happened in the closed session that they had after the testimony. So there's just not a lot of information. I mean, CNN had a countdown timer for this testimony for like the last couple days on their channel. All right, it's like this thing was majorly hyped. And it's just like, really, you think there's going to be some major revelation? I mean, but anyway, I would recommend, like, for a little more of a general analysis of what went on, I would recommend that video as well, Tim Pool. I'll put a link to it in the description below. So, that's it for this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Again, let me know your opinions, your thoughts on this matter, and I'll see you next time.